Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John's report. It's for the 2nd of June. And, Friday ended up slightly positive after just a brief dip. We weren't overly concerned. But, now you're below the 25 with Magenta. The only advantage you've got here is that there really isn't a whole lot of short activity. So it's just a question of, when that new fund money comes in. Probably not for a few more days, but you could start to see a lead up towards that eventuality coming up around the 4th or so. But shakeout's still holding, but it's kind of tenuous here as we get to within that weak spot. So it needs to see some continuation from that escalation. Otherwise, we're just sort of now in that consolidation range where we could just move around here a bit. Of course, there are troubling elements on the international front. Of course, the Ukrainians attacking the Russian strategic bombers and that, and whether that leads to escalation. They're trying to frame it as to whether the U.S. knew about this. And, that creates instability. Instability creates fear. Fear, obviously, is a selling point in most cases. So it's worth noting. You can see a bit more of a weakness from the NASDAQ relative to what we see from the S&P, but still benign. You're going to see a sharp move in NBI white from a daily standpoint, at least, to move up. Of course, we'll see it earlier in 50K ES charts or even smaller time frame than that. Of course, Treasuries yield dropping in there, so there's still a motivation to move towards market. Of course, the narrative on inflation completely collapsed as the most recent data coming through doesn't support any inflation whatsoever. In fact, some of the numbers are the lowest readings we've had since, Donald Trump was president last time. So go figure there. This could be problematic because it becomes a tension issue, and whether oil continues to rise, that would be your inflationary pressure. And for now, it's been benign, but this puts you in a little bit of a warning zone. So I'd keep an eye on that one because that would definitely be a negative from a market standpoint. Of course, the euro very excited by this and spiking, thinking that the U.S. Again is in a world of hurt. And that's the narrative that's been playing out. And as long as that continues to go with the whole tariff thing, and that's still got no resolution because that still has to be resolved, even though the Supreme Court stayed the current setup. Now you have to go in front of judges to decide whether the president has the authority to do what he was doing under the statutes. And, that creates an unknown. And if it loses the power on the tariffs, that becomes a real blow as far as what he's able to do, particularly without complete congressional support. And that would be very problematic from a diplomacy as well as a lot of other things. So we'll see how that plays out. But gold, that's positive here because, again, uncertainty and concerns about retaliation and escalation that throws everything into unknown territory. And unknown is always problematic when it comes to markets because they like to know where things are headed well in advance. And of course, Bitcoin has been filling back in some of its weakness, but now it's got a complete reset within this, still within a short view, simply with the DOC spread. Pretty decent. So given these readings, if MBI white slightly moves above there, then you would definitely not expect the 76% to hold on that. But it's had a pretty decent run relative to everything else. And of course, ETH, not quite as negative on that, but it didn't have the same move that Bitcoin had. So proportionally, it's reasonable. 50K standpoint, we were already in the weakness, and then you can see that the turnaround came once the MBI white reached the zero. You ended up with Magenta crossing over, and then with the rising of Magenta and MBI white, you get that short rally cover. Didn't last too long because MBI white popped back up again, and then you broke down below the 33 on Magenta. That led to the current fade that we're in right now. So by the time we get the open, we should have a complete reset of both sides, and we'll see who's in control at that particular stage, and whether we get a continuation, because you still need the MBI white to pop out here to really drive towards that 0%, which would be down by that 50 range. So we'll see how it unfolds. In the European session right now, it's all weakness, which is ironic that the euro would be climbing within that because there isn't anything positive coming out of the Eurozone. When we look at the intraday stuff, you can see how that rally turned around. clearing out all of the calls for the week and then turn around buying towards the start of the beginning of the new week. And of course, now you see that's erased here in the post market. So all the balancing act. But again, we have to watch the world events because that's really going to shape things. So that's where the focus turns to. As always, anything relevant, I'll put it on our team chat. Have a good one. Trade well.